Alright, friends. What do you want me to tell you? Friends, we got a good daf over here. Learning about Tzipori and Tiveria. Friends, we get to this awesome Gemara about yagati umatzati. If a friend talks about working hard and trying to accomplish something, it's very, very interesting stuff. It's very lemaise in our lives. And, alright. Friends, we can get to a new Mishnah. Lots of exciting stuff in today's daf. Where do we get started? Okay, we're gonna, friends. All right, pay attention. We're gonna start on daf Herman Beis all the way at the bottom, on the bottom line of the daf. Amr Rabbi Yochanan Ua says Rabbi Yochanan, Ki avina Talia, when I was a young whippersnapper, Amina Milsa de Sheilna de Savia Vishtkach Kavasi. So I said something that I sort of what's it called? What's the word? Something by that I passed by, that I floated by, whatever it was. He said something in front of the rabbis, and they're like, "Yeah, you're onto something." One second, I gotta fix my chair. Maybe that's better than my son. So it says Rabbi Yochanan, he said something in front of the rabbis, and it turned out that it was good at what he was saying. Oh dang, this chair is no good. One second. We got the uneven floors here. Give me a second. Okay, so what did he say? So he said Chamas o Tveria. That Chamas is Tveria. Why is Tveria called Chamas? Al Shum Chami Tveria, because of the hot springs of Tveria. Tveria is called Chamas. Alright, sounds like fun. Rakas zot tzipori, and Rakas is tzipori. All right. Rakas. How come tzipori is called Rakas? Because it's high up on a mountain, on a hill, like the shore of the river, like the banks of the river are above the river. Kineres zo ginoser, and Kineres is ginoser. Kineres. Why is ginoser called Kineres? The Mesike Pera, because its fruits are very sweet. Kekala de Chinre, like the sound of a harp. Wow. That the fruits are so sweet, they're like the sweet sounds of a harp. How beautiful. Anyways, friends, remember the Peres Ginoser? What daf was that? What daf of Masechta Brachos was that? Who could tell me what daf was that? Was it Mem Beis or Mem Aleph? Something like that. They talk about Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, everybody eating the Peres Ginoser, Babo. Everybody was eating the fruits of Ginoser. All right, that's why Ginoser is called Kineres, because its fruits are so sweet, like the sound of a harp. How beautiful. Tveria, wait, where am I? Oh, my Rave, says Rave. One second. We said that Rakas is Tzipori. But is that true? It says Rave, there's no question about the fact that Rakas is Taka Tveria. When a fellow dies over here in Bavel, Hossam, Dartin, over there in Tveria, Safte Lehochi, they eulogize the fellow by saying the following. Gadol b'Sheshach is a gewaldige Mensch in Sheshach. Sheshach is a reference to Bavel, so he's a good fellow in Bavel, because as Rashi points out, Sheshach in Atbash is Bavel, right? Meaning you interchange an aleph for a taf, a beis for a shin, so Sheshach is Bavel. Got it? Good. Let's go weiter. V'shem lo berakas, and he has, so he's a gewaldige Mensch in Bavel, and he's got for himself a name in Rakas as well in Tveria. And when the coffin reaches Tveria for burial from Bavel, Safte leachi, they eulogize him in the following way. Ohave sridim, in Tveria they say, the lovers of Eretz Yisrael. I don't know, do you guys love Eretz Yisrael? Mistame. Yoshvei Rakas, the people who dwell in Rakas, in Tveria, Tzeu, come out, Vikablu Arugei Omek, and come and accept those who have died in Bavel. And in Bavel is lower down; it's deeper, so it's called the valley. All right. So we see that the Rakas is a reference to Tveria. And when Reb Zera passed away in Tveria, a eulogizer said the following eulogy: Eretz Shinner hara v'yalada, that the land of Shinner, that Bavel conceived and gave birth to Reb Zera, but Eretz Tzvi Gidla Shashuel, but in Eretz Yisrael they raised him. That basically Reb Zera was born in Bavel but made Aliyah, as we learned in Masechta Shabbos, to Eretz Yisrael. Oyin Allah Omer Rakas, and Tveria says Oy Gevalt Ki of the Klei Chemdasa, because we have lost the very beautiful vessels. So we seem to be seeing from these different indications that Rakas is Tveria, it is not Tzipori. Se'ela Merave, so rather says Rave Chamas Zochame Gror, that Chamas is not referring to Tveria, it refers to Gror. Rakas zo Tveria, and Rakas is Tveria. Kineres zo Ginosar, Kineres is Ginosar. V'lo Nikoshma Rakas. How come Tveria is called Rakas? Shafilu rei konin sheba mlei mitzvahs karimon, that even the empty ones in Tveria are filled up with mitzvahs, like a pomegranate is filled up with seeds. Givaldik. Pomegranates have a lot of seeds. Very delicious seeds in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar says, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rakas Shema, that really the city is called Rakas, V'lominiko Shema Tveria, then how come we call it Tveria if its real name is Rakas? She'yosheves b'tibur shel Eretz Yisrael, because it dwells, it's located in the belly button of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, well, I guess that's proof that Eretz Yisrael is a belly button. Rabbi Amar says, Rabbi Rakas Shema, that really it's called Rakas, V'lominiko Shema Tveria. How come they call it Tveria? Shetover Iyas. It's very beautiful. It's very, very beautiful. Alright, very interesting stuff. Amar Ze'ira says of Ze'ira, Kitron, am I pronouncing that right? Yeah. Kitron zo Tzipori. Kitron is Tzipori. That's what Ze'ira says. V'lominiko Shema Tzipori. Well, if it's Kitron, why do we call it Tzipori? She'osheves birosh ahar kitzipor. That, well, because the city is located at the top of a mountain, like a fagel, like a bird. V'kitron Tzipori. Correct the Gemara 1 second. Is it really true that Kitron is Tzipori? V'kitron bechalkol shel Zvulun avoy. But Kitron is in Zvulun's portion of Eretz Yisrael. The pasuk says Zvulun lo horish es yoshvei Kitron, that Zvulun neglected to drive out those who dwell in Kitron. Ves yoshvei nahalo, that Zvulun did not drive out the inhabitants of Kitron and Nahalo, meaning that Kitron was in Zvulun's portion. V'Zvulun Misraim amidos of Hava, and Zvulun was not happy with the portion of Eretz Yisrael that he received. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Zvulun amcherif nafshalomus, that Zvulun was kind of like very, very upset. Matam, how come? Mishum de Naftali amro misade, because Naftali got in Zvulun's eyes, Naftali got a gevaldiga portion of Eretz Yisrael, and he, Zvulun, got a portion of Eretz Yisrael that he was not satisfied with. Zvulun lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zvulun says before the Eibishter, Ribbono shel Olam, Master of the world, la'achai nosat Elohim sadus v'chromim. You gave my brother Naphtali fields, vineyards. V'li nosat harim ugvos. What did you give me? Mountains, hills. La'achai nosat Elohim arotzis. You gave my brother lands. V'li nosat yomim v'nairis. To me, you gave rivers and seas. So, Omar Lo, so the Eibishter says to Zvulun, Kulan tzrichen lecha. Yeah, but Zvulun, all of the Yidden are going to need you. Ayidei chilazon, because in your portion of Eretz Yisrael, there is the snail, the chilazon snail that they use to make the blue dyes for the tchelis. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Amim hayikro, that the nations will come to the mountain to use Zvulun, usfune tmunechol, and the things that are hidden in the sand. V'tani Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef taught Sfune ze chilazon, that Sfune is a reference to the chilazon. Tmune zotris. Tmune is a reference to the tris, which might be like a tuna fish or something. Chol zozchuchis, and chol is a reference to zchuchis levana, white glass. So basically, Zvulun is going to have all of these very gewaldige things. So I'm lefanav Ribono shel olam mimo di'eni. But then Zvulun says to God, he says, yeah, but who's going to tell me? Right? Meaning, a fellow comes, chapsarayna chilazon, from Zvulun's territory, from his portion of Eretz Yisrael. Who's updating Zvulun so that Zvulun can, make money off of the transaction? So while it's very nice maybe that Zvulun has all of these chilazons, but who's going to be paying him for them? So Amlos, the Eibishter says to Zvulun, Sham yizbuchu zivchei tzedek, that Dartin, over there they will sacrifice sacrifices of tzedek, of righteousness. Simin ze yehei lecha, says God to Zvulun, that there is this sign, kol anota mimcha b'lo, that anybody who takes a chilazon or anything else from you without paying you for it, he's not going to succeed in business, klum, at all. So therefore, so God assured Zvulun that actually his portion of Eretz Yisrael is very favorable, that there's chilazon and this white glass and tuna fish, all these great things. So okay, fine, gewaldig. Now, v'i salkadaite kitron zot tzipori. Now, if it enters your mind that kitron is tzipori, now we know that kitron was in the portion of Zvulun, as we learned earlier, right? As it says, what did the pasuk say? Kitron Zvulun lohorish yisoshrei kitron. That Zvulun didn't drive out the inhabitants of Kitron. So we see that Kitron was in Zvulun's portion. We also know that Zvulun, as we just saw, was very upset regarding the portion of Eretz Yisrael that he received. So v'yisakadaita Kitron zotzipori, and if it enters your mind to say that Kitron, which was in the portion of Zvulun, is tzipori, amay misayim amidosov. Why would Zvulun be getting upset about the fact that he has tzipori? Tzipori is a very awesome place. Why would why would Zvulun be upset about that? And if you're going to say, well, maybe in tzipori there isn't flowing with milk and honey, but that's not true. Rish Lakish says, Ledidi, according to me, Chazili tzipori, I saw the flowing milk and honey of tzipori, and it was 16 mil by 16 mil, which is 4 parsos by 4 parsos, I believe. And if it enters your mind, and if you're going to say, okay, so maybe there's some flowing milk and honey by tzipori, but maybe the other brothers have more. It says Rabbi Bar Bachan, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Bar Bachan, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that he has seen all of the flowing milk and honey of all of Eretz Yisrael. And it was from Beikovi to the port of Tubakni. It was 22 parsos long, and 6 parsos wide. So all of the zavas chalav udvash, all of the flowing milk and honey of Eretz Yisrael was 22 parsos long and 6 parsos wide. And in Tzipori alone, it was 4 parsos by 4 parsos. So clearly in Tzipori there was quite a bit of milk and honey. So again, back to our initial question. How could we be saying that Kitron is Tzipori if Kitron was in the portion of Zvulun, and Zvulun was upset about his portion, and yet Tzipori was such an awesome thing. So afilachi, even so, Sadu Suchom Madifale, that still Zvulun preferred to have fields and vineyards rather than mountains and things like that. So the pasuk specifically says that Naphtali is on these fields, meaning that Zvulun, yeah, sure, maybe he has snails and things, right? These chilazons, but he would still prefer to have these fields and vineyards. So, all right, sounds like very interesting stuff. But you could still say that Kitron is Taka Tzipori. Omer Babo, says Taka Babo, Ve'ekron Te'akor, that Ekron should be uprooted. Zo Kisari Bas Edom, that's a reference to Caesarea of Edom. She Yosheves Ben Acholis, that it dwells among the sand. V'oisa Yosit Kuli Yisrael B'meyivanim, and it was a peg stuck into the sides of the Israelites in the time of the Greeks. And when the Chashmonoim were victorious on Hanukkah, they called Ekron Achidas Migdal Shir, some like sweet song place. Amr Byosi by Chanina. What does the pasuk mean? Vasirosi dam of mi piv, that I will remove his blood from his mouth. V'shikutz of mi ben shinov, and the abomination from among his teeth. V'nishar gamule lokenu, and he will remain for God. So let's see, what does this mean? Vasirosi dam of mi piv, I will remove his blood from his mouth. Is that base bam yushalon? It's a reference to the houses of worships of a particular kind of avodah zarah. V'shikutzav mi ben shinov, and I will remove the abominations from among his teeth. I think it's a reference to the tzur, that the Eibusher is gonna do these things to tzur. Zebez Galia, and this is a reference to their avodah zarah place for their Galia avodah zarah. All right, v'nishar gam hule lukenu, he's going to remain to God. Elu bate knesus uvatu midrashes shebe Edom. This is a reference to the synagogues and the study halls in Edom. Vayika'alav biYehuda ve'ekron kiyevusi, and it will be like a general in Judah, and Ekron. Oh no, I'm sorry. Vayika'alav bi. Okay, let's go back there for a second. Ve'ekron kiyevusi, and Ekron like Yerushalayim. Elu tratrios ve'karkasios shebedom. These are the amphitheaters and the circuses of Edom. Shasidin sari Yehuda l'lamed bayin Torah beravim. Then the future, the officers of Judah are going to be teaching Torah to the public in these Edomite amphitheaters. All right. Amr Bitzchak, Leshem Zopamius, says Bitzchak that the place called Leshem is a reference to the Pamius. The Ekron Teakar Zokesari Bas Edom, and it says that Ekron will be uprooted. That is Caesarea of Edom. Edom, what do you want me to tell you? She'aisa Metropolin Shamalachim, that it was the capital, a big city for kings. Ikedarm, those who say the Marbiba Malche, those who say that they would raise kings there. Ikedarm the Mukmemina Malche, that they inaugurated kings from there. What do you want me to tell you? Kesari Yerushalayim. Now, when it comes to Caesarea and Jerusalem, if a fellow would say to you, Charvu Shtein, that both Caesarea and Jerusalem were both destroyed, Al Taimin, do not believe him. Yashvu Shtein Al Taimin, and if both Caesarea and Jerusalem are settled, don't believe that either. Charva Kesari Yashvu Yerushalayim. But if a fellow says that Caesarea was destroyed but Jerusalem was settled, Charva Yerushalayim V'Yashva Kesari, or that Jerusalem was destroyed and Caesarea was inhabited, Taimin, in that case you could believe him. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Imala Acharova, I will fill myself up with destruction. All right, sounds very healthy. Imaleazo Charevazo, if this one is filled, then the other one is destroyed. Imaleazo Charevazo, if this one is filled, then the other one is destroyed. Meaning, when it comes to Caesarea and Jerusalem, it's one or the other. It can't be that both Caesarea and Jerusalem are thriving one has to be up and the other one has to be down. For example, as we just saw the pasuk, right? The imala charava imaleazo charevazo. If this one is filled, then that one is destroyed. Imaleazo charevazo. If this one is filled, then that one is destroyed. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Omer miachum ulaom milaom yamatz. Whereas Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says from the following pasuk that one nation will be stronger from the other nation, right? Kilu, it says by Yaakov and Esav when they were still in Rivka's womb. It says that sort of one will be stronger from the other. I.e., when one is up, the other one is down, and vice versa as well. V'amar Yitzchak, and says Rabbi Yitzchak, what does the pasuk mean? Yuchan Rasha Balomed Tzedek, that an evildoer should be you should have compassion on him. Let's see, what does this mean? Amar Yitzchak l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yitzchak Avinu says before God, Ribono Shel, Master of the world, Yuchan Esav, nu have mercy on Esav. Amar lo Rasha, to which God says, I can't have mercy on Esav, he's a nudnik. Amar lo Balomed Tzedek, to which Yitzchak Avinu says to God, he says, yeah, but can't somebody, find something righteous to say about him? Amar lo, the Eibishter says, Be'eretz Nechochos Ya'avel, that essentially in Jerusalem, he will destroy Jerusalem. Well, if that's the case, that Esav is going to be destroying Jerusalem, well then I don't need him to see any of the greatness of God, any of God's help, because Yitzchak didn't want Jerusalem to be destroyed. Rabbi Yitzchak, and says Rabbi Yitzchak, what does the pasuk mean? Al titin Hashem avoye rasha zamumo al tofek yoromu sela. Wow, that's a loaded pasuk. So, right, God do not give the nudnik what his desire is. Don't take out his muzzle. Don't do that stuff. Yaakov l'fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Jacob says before God, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the world, Atitin le'Esav harasha tavas libo, do not give to Esav the nudnik what he desires. Mama al tofek, do not remove his muzzle. Zo Germamya Shel Edom. Interesting. It's this place called Germamya in Edom. She'ilm lehein yotzin machribin kol olam kulo. If not for the fact that they would go out every day and kill each other, well then they might focus on other things and kill other people. So the Amr of Cham bar Chanina, that says of Cham bar Chanina, Flasmeya malchi ktiretaga ika bigermamya. There are 300 kings with their crowns in this place called Germamya Shel Edom, of Edom. And there are 365 officers in Rome. Alright? And every day, nafke hani lape hani, these kings and officers go out to war, one against the other, and there's one fatality every day. And they have a hard time kind of getting together a king, and anyways, as long as they're busy kind of fighting with each other, they'll leave the rest of the world alone. Alright? From Rabbi Yitzchak, consists Rabbi Yitzchak, Im yomer lecha adam, if a fellow says to you, yagati v'lo umatzati, says Rabbi Yitzchak, a fellow comes to you and he says, look, I tried really hard, but it's just, I couldn't figure it out. Al taimin, don't believe him. Lo yagaitu umatzati, if a fellow says, look, I didn't even try at all, it was super easy, I just found it just came to me. Al taimin, don't believe him. Yagaitu umatzati taimin. But if a fellow says, look, I worked hard, and then I ultimately found what I was looking for, I ultimately succeeded, taimin. There you can believe him. Right? A fellow says, look, I tried my hardest. Well, I tried my hardest, but I just couldn't figure it out. Well, don't believe him. Right? If he says, I didn't have to try it all, and I just got it immediately without any effort, don't believe him. If a fellow says, I worked hard and I accomplished something, then you could believe him. Wow. So now comes the qualifications here. This is when it comes to studying the Holy Torah. When it comes to business, siyatu and shmaya, that comes from the Eibishter. You could try really hard, but ultimately success, dartin, is going to come from the Eibishter. And when it comes to studying Torah, this whole, yagati umatzati, that if you work hard, you'll accomplish. That's in terms of to sharpen your head, to learn how to think, to be able to study. But to remember and to retain what you learned, so you can remember it, that is requires work from heaven. So right? So I think that what the Gemara is saying, that when it comes to Divrei Torah, the ability to acquire skills and to be able to study the Holy Torah, so for that, if a fellow is willing to put in the time and the effort, so he'll be able to succeed. All right. So there are certain things that you require siyata d'shmaya, you require the help of God, but there are certain things, figuring things out. If you work hard enough, you will succeed. Rabbi Yitzchak says, this is a Gemara that we saw in Masechta Brachos. I remember studying this Gemara. I think I studied this Gemara on Shabbos in, where was I? I was in Canggu, I think, in Indonesia, when I studied Daf Zayin of Masechta Brachos, I think. Anyways, Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yitzchak, if you see a nudnik, that things seem to be going well for him, then don't start up with him. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, do not start up with nudniks. Not only that, he's going to succeed. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, he's going to succeed all the time. Not only that, that this nudnik is going to be meritorious in judgment. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, that justice is above him. Not only that, this nudnik is going to see the downfall of his enemies. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, anybody who's sort of giving him a hard time will just blow him away. So we see that Rabbi Yitzchak is saying is that when there's a nudnik that things seem to be going his way, you better stay away. But is that true? From Rabbi Yochanan, it says Rabbi Yochanan ben Yochai, it's permitted to start up with nudniks in this world. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Ozvei Torah Yahadlu Rasha, that those who leave the Torah will praise a nudnik. V'shomrei Torah Yizgarubam, but people who guard the Holy Torah, they will start up with them. So Vitanin, we talk learn in a brisa. Reb Dostoi bar Matun Omar says, Reb Dostoi bar Matun, Mutal Izgaris Barsharim Ba'olam Hazeh, it's permitted to start up with the nudniks in this world. And if a fellow wants to say to you, look, don't start up with the nudniks, just leave them alone. Only somebody who is sort of insecure about himself would say not to start up with the nudniks. So when it says don't start up with nudniks, it means don't be like the nudniks. Do not get involved with those people who do the wrong things. To be like those people. That you should not wrap up your heart with the sinners. So on the one hand, you have Rabbi Yitzchak who's saying that when you have a nudnik, leave him alone because things seem to be going his way. Yet on the other hand, we have other indications that you should start up with nudniks. So lokash, it's no problem. It depends. When it comes to sort of holy things, right? So then, yes, you can sort of challenge the nudniks. When it comes to your own personal things, leave the nudniks alone because they may succeed over there. If you want, I will say, both are talking about his own personal matters. It depends. If the fellow is a tzaddik gomer, a complete tzaddik, so he could start up with the nudnik. But if he's not a complete tzaddik, he shouldn't start up with the nudnik. The Amar Rav Huna, as Rav Huna says, what does the pasuk mean? Lamasabit bogdim. Why do the traitors look tachish b'vala rasha tzaddik mimenu, and they're quiet when a nudnik swallows up somebody who's a greater tzaddik than he is tzaddik mimenu boleya, that a nudnik is able to swallow up somebody who's not necessarily a big tzaddik, but just more of a tzaddik than the nudnik, tzaddik gomer einu boleh, but he's unable, right? Nudnik is unable to consume a real tzaddik, and therefore, when Rabbi Yitzchak says to stay away from nudniks, he's talking about people who are not the tzaddik gomer. They should stay away from nudniks. All right. By Seymour, if you want to say, Shah misachek is lo shiny. That's different when things are going his way, right? Meaning, what Rabbi Yitzchak is saying is, don't, start up with a nudnik when things are going his way, and therefore, when things are going his way, avoid it. But if they're not necessarily going his way, so then yes, you can challenge a nudnik. Continues the Gemara. Omar Ula says Ula, Italia shall Yavon zekrach gadol sharomi. Friends, do you hear this? Italy of Greece is the capital city of Rome. Italy of Greece is the capital city of Rome. All right, that sounds interesting to me. Fabia tlas mea parsa al tlas mea parsa, and it's 300 parsas by 300 parsas. V'yeshba shin samachay shvakim. There are 365 markets over there. Communion mosachama, like the number of days in the year. V'katan shebechulam shalmochre ofis, and the smallest of these markets is of those who sell birds. V'avya shisha asur mil al shisha asur mil, and it's 16 mills by 16 mills. Umelech soid b'chol yom be'echad man, and the king feasts every day in one of these different booths. All right, in all of in these different markets. Okay, and anybody who lives in Italia, so even though he wasn't born there, he gets sort of like food or whatever from the king. And somebody who was born in Italy, even though he doesn't currently live in Italy, he can also get some kind of something to receive from the king. And there are 3,000 bathhouses in Italy. And there are 500 windows that raise up smoke outside of the wall. On one side, Italy is sea. On the other end, it is mountains and hills. On one side, there is an iron separation. And the other side has like rocks and things like that. All right. Okay, Italy sounds like an interesting place. Okay, moving on to a new Mishnah. So if they read already the Megillah in Adar, okay, so they read the Megillah in Adar, but then it became a leap year. All of a sudden now there's another Adar, there's an Adar Sheni, a second Adar. Now they already read the Megillah in the first Adar. So also Adar Sheni. So you have to read it a second time in the Adar Sheni. Now you have to read Megillah twice that year. Ein ben Adar Harishin the Adar Sheni Ela Kriyas Megillah Matanas Levyonim. The only difference between Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni is Kriyas Megillah and Matanas Levyonim. That has to be done in Adar Sheni. Okay. But with regard to the Seder Parshas, who could tell me what the Seder Parshas are? Shkolim, Parshas Zocher, Parshas Pareh, Parshas Achodesh, right? Those. So if you read it in the first Adar, then it became a leap year. You don't have to repeat it. Okay. Now, Frek the Gemara, Mani Masnisin. Who is the author of our Mishnah? Lo Tanakama, v'lo Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, v'lo Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Says the Gemara. You see, I don't understand. The Mishnah sounds like it's neither. Right, we're about to quote a brisa in which there's a Tanakama, there's Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, and there's Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. It would seem like our Mishnah is none of those opinions. Let's see. The Tanya, as we talk about in the brisa, Karus a Megillah ba'Adar Arishin. If they read the Megillah in Adar Arishin, and then it became a leap year, so now there is another Adar. So you have to read the Megillah Nachamol. You have to read the Megillah a second time in the second order. Because all of the mitzvahs of the first order, of the second order, you can also do in the first order. Chutz b'mikra Megillah. The exception being reading from the Megillah. Even if you do it in the first order, you have to do it a second time in the second order. But it's not fine. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, Omer says Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, in Kohen Osa be'odor Hasheni, you actually don't have to repeat the Megillah. According to Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, you do not need to read the Megillah a second time in the second order. Shekol mitzvah shenagos b'sheni noagos b'rishon, because any mitzvah of the second order you can also do in the first order. And therefore, if they already read Megillah in the first order, so that's it. They don't need to read it a second time in the second order. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer says Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Mishum Reb Yossi, in the name of Reb Yossi, Af Korin Osa b'odor Hasheni, you have to read the Megillah a second time in Odor Sheni. Shekol mitzvah shenagos b'sheni ein nagos b'rishon, because any of the mitzvahs of the second order do not work in the first order, and therefore, if you have to read the Megillah in the second order, the fact that you read it in the first one does not count. And everyone agrees that when it comes to eulogizing and fasting, that you would be allowed to neither eulogize nor fast on the 14th and the 15th of Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Hanu Tanakama. In fact, the Gemara, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is saying the same thing as the Tanakama. Both of them are saying that if you read the Megillah in the first order, you have to read it again in the second order. So Rav Papa said the Parsha Siki Benayu. So it says Rav Papa that the nafkamina is the Seder Parshas. Because if we look at the Tanakama, what does the Tanakama say? Tanakama says that Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni are the same. The difference being reading the Megillah. But if you read the 4 Parshas in the first order, you don't have to do it again in the second order. Whereas Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says that none of the mitzvahs of the second order work in the first order, and therefore you would have to repeat the 4 Parshas. Right? The Tanakama over the Chatchila Basheni. According to the Tanakama, you really need to do the 4 Parshas in the second order, but V'i Avud Barishon Avud. But if you did the but if you did it in the first order, so Beseder, it works. Bar Mikra Megillah, the only exception being reading of the Megillah, Dafagav Dekar Barishon Kuro B'Sheni, that even though you read Megillah in the first order, you have to read it again in the second order. But when it comes to reading the but when it comes to the 4 Parshas, if you did in the first order, so then Itaka works. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi Savar Afilu Mikra Megillah Lechatchila Barishon, whereas Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi says that no, even reading the Megillah you could do in the first order, and that's completely fine. Certainly the 4 Parshas would be okay. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Savar Afilu say the Parshos Yikar Barishon Kro B'Sheni, whereas Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says that even when it comes to the 4 Parshas, right, he says that any of the mitzvahs you have to do in the second order, you may not do in the first order, and therefore, when it comes to the 4 Parshas, you would have to do them in the second order. So again, according to the Tanakama, really, lichatchila you should read the 4 Parshas in the second order, but if you did it in the first order, it's fine. According to Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, even lichatchila you could read the 4 Parshas in the first order. Whereas, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that you have to read the 4 Parshas again in the second order, because none of the mitzvahs of the second order work if they're done in the first order. Now money. Now getting back to our initial question, so who's the author of our Mishnah? Our Mishnah says that the only difference between the first order and the second order is reading the Megillah and gifts to the poor and matanos levyonim. If you did it in the first order, you have to do it again in the second order. Now itanakama kasha matanos. Now the author of our Mishnah cannot be the Tanakama of the Brisa, because the Tanakama says that the only difference is Kriyas Megillah, whereas our Mishnah says that it's not just Kriyas Megillah, it's also Matanas Levyonim. If it's Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi, then there's also there's a problem that according to Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi, you don't have to read the Megillah a second time in the second other because you already did in the first other. Any mitzvahs of the second other you could do lichatchila in the first one, and therefore, if it's Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi, there's nothing wrong with reading Megillah in the first other. Whereas our Mishnah is saying that Megillah and Matanos Avionim have to be done in the second other. Reb Shimon Gamliel, and if it's Reb Shimon Gamliel, Kasha should say the parshas. We have the problem of the 4 parshas, right? We said that the Tana of our Mishnah would say that the only thing that needs to be repeated in the second other is Kriyas Megillah and Matanos Avionim, but the 4 parshas do not. Whereas according to Reb Shimon Gamliel, none of the mitzvahs of the second other can work in the first other, and therefore you even have to repeat the 4 parshas. So, and for the Gemara, the Olam Tana Kama, really the author of our Mishnah is Taka, the Tana Kame, the Tana Mikra Megillah Vuadin Matanos Levionim. And what about the fact that in our Mishnah we mention both Kriyas Megillah and Matanos Levionim, whereas the Tana Kama only mentions Kriyas Megillah but doesn't mention Matanos Levionim? So the Gemara says, well, Tanakama, when he says Mikra Megillah, it also includes Matanos Avionim Doha B'Hataya because they are connected. We also learned yesterday, right? Rav Yosef had said that the reason why we don't read Megillah on Shabbos is because the Aniyim are looking forward when they hear Megillah to receive Matanos Avionim. That's not possible on Shabbos. So we see that Matanos Avionim are connected to reading of the Megillah, and therefore when the Tanakama says in the Braisa that the only difference between Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni is Mikra Megillah, it means Mikra Megillah and also Matanos Avionim, like the author of our Mishnah. If you want to say the Olam Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, you could say that our Mishnah is Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, who says that none of the mitzvahs of Adar Sheni work in Adar Rishon. And our Mishnah is missing a few words, and this is how you have to read it. There's no difference between Purim and Adar Rishon and Purim and Adar Sheni, Elo Mikra Megillah Matanos, except for reading the Megillah and Matanos Levionim. Halinin Hesped V'Tainis Zevze Shavin. But when it comes to eulogizing and fasting, okay, fine. So both Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni are the same, that you don't eulogize and fast on the 14th and 15th. We either say the parshas Lomari, but he's not talking about the parshas at all. The parshas you would have to repeat in the second Adar, but he's not referring to that. He's not discussing that. Amr Reb Chia bar Avin, Amr Reb Yochanan, Hilchzak Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Shavim Reb Shimon ben Yossi, says Reb Chia bar Avin in the name of Reb Yochanan, that the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, who says in the name of Reb Yossi, which is that none of the mitzvos of the second Adar work if performed in the first Adar. Amr Reb Yochanan, says Reb Yochanan, Ushnei Mikra Echad Darshu, that both Reb Shimon ben Gamliel and Reb Eliezer Reb Yossi are learning out from the same pasuk, B'chol Shana V'Shana, that the pasuk says that you'll do the mitzvahs of Purim every single year. Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi saw B'chol Shana V'Shana. Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi understands that, well, what does it mean every single year? Makol Shana V'Shana Adar Samuch L'Shvat. Just like every single year we celebrate in the Adar that comes right after Shvat. So Afkan Adar Samuch L'Shvat. So here also you can lichatchila, you could do all of the mitzvahs of the second Adar in the first Adar, right? All the mitzvahs can be done in the Adar that it's right next to Shvat. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Savar, whereas Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, who says that Yutaka do the mitzvahs, they have to be done in the second Adar, so he holds B'chol Shana V'Shana, that we compare every single year, Makol Shana V'Shana Echad Adar Asamuch L'Nisan, just like every year, the Adar that we celebrate Purim in is the Adar that's right before Nisan. So Afkan Adar Asamuch L'Nisan here as well. When there are two Adars, the mitzvahs have to be done in the Adar that comes right before Nisan. B'Shlomo Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi Mistaber time. So now the Gemara says, look, I understand Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi, who says that we're talking about the Adar that comes right after Shvat, because they mavir al mitzvahs, because we don't pass over mitzvahs, and therefore, if we could do the mitzvahs of Purim in the first Adar, so we'll do them in the first Adar, the Adar that's right next to Shvat. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, my time. But according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, how come he's saying that you do all these mitzvahs in the second Adar? What about the fact that ein ma'avrin al mitzvahs? We don't pass over mitzvahs. We should do them as soon as we can. So Amr Reb Tevi says, Reb Tevi timer to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel mismach gula legula adav. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel feels that juxtaposing the redemptions one to the other is preferred, right? I.e., the redemption of Yitzias Mitzrayim in Nisan and the redemption of the Yidden from Haman in Shushan, so those should be juxtaposed, and therefore the mitzvahs of Purim must be done in the second Adar. Okay. Elazar Omer says, Rabbi Elazar, time with Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel me'achar. Rabbi Elazar says that the reason for Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel saying that the mitzvahs have to be done in the second Adar comes from here. That it says to uphold this letter of Purim, the second one, Hashenis, the second one, i.e., that the mitzvahs are done in the second month. And according to Shimon Gamliel, it says the mitzvahs have to be done in the second Adar. So we needed both psukim, the pasuk of the Kaim Sigeres Purim Hashenis, right, in the second, to refer to the second Adar, as well as B'chol Shana V'Shana, to say that just like every year, it's the Adar that's next to Nisan, so here as well. The B'chol Shana V'Shana, because if I only had the pasuk of comparing every single year, Havamina, I would have thought to say Kikushan, like our original question of, well, what about Ein Ma'avrin Ala Mitzvahs, that we don't pass over mitzvahs, and therefore we should do it in the first month. Kamash Milan Ashenis, therefore it says in the pasuk Ashenis, no, it's specifically the second month. V'Ashminin Ashenis, and if all we would have is Ashenis the second month, Havamina Batchila Barishin Uvasheni. So I might think that, well, l'chatchila it should be in the first and second months. So Kamash Milan B'chol Shana V'Shana, therefore it says no, every year. Just like every year it's only in 1 month, so here also it's only in 1 month, and it's going to be the second month. Alright? Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi, Hayashenis Mayovelei. What does Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi do with this pasuk that says Hashenis, the second one, which we want to say refers to the second month? So Mibarle Lichtu Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yehuda, he needs it for Shmuel Bar Yehuda, the Amar of Shmuel Bar Yehuda, Batchila Kava'ua B'Shushan, L'Vasof, that initially Purim was established in Shushan, but then Hashenis, then they afterwards sort of spread it out and extended it to the entire world. Friends, that was the Vav of Masechta Megillah. So much of the first daf was devoted to kind of figuring out the different names of different cities, such as Rakas is Tiveria and Kitron is Tzipori. So that was kind of interesting stuff. We learned about Zvulun and the Chilazon snails that were found in the portion of Eretz Yisrael of Zvulun. We learned a very famous and interesting concept of yagati umatzati, that if a fellow says that he worked really hard, but still he just can't figure it out, he can't succeed, so we don't believe him. Right? The Avka fellow says that he works hard and he succeeds, so then we can believe him. But we said that's specifically in terms of like figuring things out, but not in terms of like by Divrei Torah for remembering. So you can work hard and maybe you don't have such a good memory, but in terms of being able to figure out something and understand something, so then as long as you work hard enough, you'll be able to figure it out. We saw a Gemara that we had seen a long time ago in Masechta Brachos about if you have a nudnik who things seem to be working out for him, so stay away from him because things are working out. And then we got to a new Mishnah where we said that if you read Megillah in the first in Adar and then it becomes a leap year, so now there's a second Adar, so what do you do? So we saw 3 opinions. There was an opinion of Tanna Kama that says you have to read the Megillah a second time because all the mitzvahs of the second month work in the first month except for Mikra Megillah and Matanas Lavyonim. There was the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer Bar Yossi says you certainly do not need to read the Megillah a second time because all of the mitzvahs of the second month you could do in the first month. And there was the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel who says that you have to read the Megillah again in the second month because none of the mitzvahs of the second month apply in the first month of Adar. Friends, that was the Vav Masechta Megillah. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace out.